The Digital India program recently celebrated 7 years of its launch. The campaign has boosted the adoption of innovation and digital technologies across sectors. CNBC-TV18 hosted Digital India Vision 7.0, powered by MasterCard, dedicated to connecting all the dots like digital infrastructure, e-governance, electronics manufacturing, and modern digital laws with a focus on digital privacy, cybersecurity, capacity building, and skilling to catalyze New India's Techade. Among other key conversations, the event also had industry experts converge for a power-packed discussion to delve upon how the adoption of disruptive technologies, innovative business models will enjoy an upward growth trajectory in a panel discussion titled 5G to Foster India's Techade.
Thank you very much for that. Now 5G holds the promise of 100 times faster speed and lag-free connectivity. Coupled with artificial intelligence, IoT, AR, VR, emerging technologies like robotics, it can enable a lot of use cases across sectors: healthcare, agriculture, e-commerce, manufacturing, education, and 5G will form the bedrock of the technological developments of this decade. But the idea of a Techade is not only increased use of technology, it should also be inclusive, it should have a socio-economic impact, and 5G can help India bridge its digital divide and bring in inclusive growth. So to talk about how we can fully realize the 5G potential and help usher in India's Techade, it's my pleasure to once again warmly welcome our panelists here on the stage, and we await Madhav Sheth of Realme joining us in moments from now. Thank you very much. Sir, Rajaram, my first question is, the 5G auctions have been a resounding success. Sunil Bharti Mittal said, "In my 30 years, this is a first. No fuss, no follow-up, no running around corridors, no tall claims. This is ease of doing business in its full glory." 5G auctions are done. What is next? And as an opening remark, how do you think 5G will help foster, bring in India's Techade by bringing innovation, inclusivity, while having a socio-economic impact?
Thank you. The task of the government was actually to ensure that the climate for rollout of 5G is put in place in the first instance. While spectrum auction was part of the process, I think the preparation started a little long ago. I think as early as 2017 when we decided to set up a 5G test bed. So with IIT Madras and several other IITs and Samir, one of our research institutions. So the last several years have been hard work in terms of supporting, helping, assisting, facilitating the ecosystem players, especially the startups and the deep tech startups, to actually work on these technologies ahead of time. So while that be the case, I think the government also took a lot of efforts in unlocking spectrum, because spectrum doesn't come, it's already deployed in several other uses. So getting the spectrum unlocked and putting them to the market took a lot of effort. In fact, because there were several other stakeholders like defense, and many other users who had to part with some of the spectrum which could be then auctioned. Of course, the auction process was itself took quite some time. But nevertheless, I think at the end of the day, I would like to say that the job of the government as part of the auction process was to essentially put out more spectrum in the market, because essentially India is one of the countries where the spectrum per population is actually low. In fact, for the kind of explosion in data which we're seeing now, we need more spectrum per population. So therefore, from that perspective, I think it's a good beginning, and we believe that this will spawn not only new use cases, because 5G is obviously a different technology with a number of enterprise use cases, and also promises greater speed, low latency, higher reliability, and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, I think this is a great opportunity for innovation to happen, because essentially innovation happens around new technology. And I think 5G that way promises to be disruptive in its use cases, I think. So, and therefore, from that perspective, we are quite excited. We will continue to work with the industry to actually develop these use cases. We look forward to a very robust and a planned long-term rollout.
Okay, so innovation is a key factor that you're keeping in mind. I want to talk, sir, a bit about inclusivity. 5G, they say, can help bridge India's digital divide. While Telangana is making a lot of efforts to make sure optical fiber reaches every household in Telangana, the problem is it's still very hard. 2/3 of India is in rural areas where a cable, a fiber finds it very hard to reach. Most of us have mobile connectivity, but the speeds are not very high. So when we switch to 5G, we will have very high speed and high quality broadband-like experience, which can usher in a lot of innovation, enable the use cases that you're talking about. So when this happens outside of the metros, it will help India bridge its digital divide. So my question is that 5G right now is going to be rolled out only in the key cities, in the metros, I think 11 in October, and it will take a couple of years before it becomes pan-India. So in a way, if the operators are right now going to cater to the creamy areas, only the metros, will it not deepen the digital divide rather than bridge it? Your thoughts on how 5G can foster inclusivity?
All telecom networks, by very nature, start from a focal point, and then like a circle, they keep expanding. So that's the very nature of telecom networks, and 5G will be no different. So it's not surprising that they have to start from the cities. But my feeling is that the penetration of 5G handsets, which is critical, because without 5G handsets, even if you provide the network, it won't work. So that is going to rise so quickly that nobody can predict how many years it will take for it to go to the deep part of the country. But I think it will be much quicker than what we are all expecting.
Your own estimate when we could have 5G pan-India?
Well, I think we are in a 100-meter race, so keep running as fast as you can. Don't worry about how long it takes. We'll do our level best to reach as soon as we can.
Rajaraman, your thoughts on inclusivity?
5G is new to most parts of the world, I think, though, of course, a number of countries have launched it. Rollout will be gradual, because and even the telecom service providers have taken a measured step, because obviously they would like to see how revenues grow, etc. So it will be a measured rollout. 4G will continue to be the base load system. While 5G builds up, it will definitely reach out to the rural areas. And let me also say this. See, today the 4G covers almost like 98% of the subscribers. Now the Honorable Prime Minister has taken a decision to actually saturate the country with 4G. So the technology that we are going to adopt will also be 5G enabled. To switch on 5G will not be very difficult. I think most of the technologies of 4G can be upgraded to 5G without much of effort. So I think once the use cases build up, I think this country, the 5G will really explode. That's our expectation. And let me also say, see, the Indian digital user is not to be underestimated. We lead in terms of the data use, I think, in fact, in the most parts of the world, the average data use is about 12 GB per user per month. But India has already reached about 18, I think, which I think shows that I think the uptake will be very fast.
No, absolutely. I think 4G helped India's digital consumption go up by 6.5 times data consumption. Rajan, to take up on that point about use cases, B2b value proposition of 5G can be well imagined, right? AI and 5G will help autonomous cars. We could have robotic surgeries taking place remotely in healthcare. But what about from a B2C point of view? Now, we still don't seem to have a killer 5G app or a use case for which we require 5G. Now, 4G enabled movie streaming, which was not earlier possible with 3G. What is it that you see from a customer-consumer point of view will be that compelling use case for which 5G is needed, and that will drive adoption?
I think I'll ask you a counter question. What was the killer use case for 4G? What was the killer use case for 3G? Typically, use cases do not generally, the killer ones, you don't see them born till you have the G rolled out. Now, I would like to touch upon the topic which was discussed as to what is going to happen in 5G in India. With 4G, we address the need of the mobile customer, right? And we talk about 12 GB, 19 GB actually. That's sort of consumption per month, from 1 GB to 19 GB. And if I ask any one of us that what is it that you're doing which consumes 90, I don't think we have a very clear answer how we ended up using 19 GB. And it's still growing. What is missing is the connectivity in the home. Broadband inside the home, especially during the pandemic, we all saw that all of us, the school moved inside the home, the office moved inside the home, and we needed broadband inside the home. With 5G, what you're going to see is that, especially with this super successful auction, And I would say it is one of the best things that has happened to this country. And as we watch global, and now we watch India, millimeter wave and the way the government has managed to offer, and the operators have taken up the challenge of taking huge spectrum, millimeter wave is going to solve the issue of home broadband. So what I would see is that the home needed fiber. Fiber is a difficult proposition. It's going to take its own time. And with millimeter wave, you will see the home getting the fiber. That's the first consumer use case, because now you have broadband inside the home. Apart that, of course, you can talk about zillions of use cases. I think the operators, Airtel, Jio, Vodafone, have, over the last 1 year, during the trials, have showcased multiple use cases. I would still say that let's not define what's a killer use case. Basically, 5G is the need of this country, primarily to exactly address the digital divide, because 5G is going to be going to the rural. With millimeter wave, we are going to reach out to the end of the villages, which had been difficult with fiber. So my belief is that 5G is going to be all pervasive very quickly.
So from a B2C point of view, the biggest use case will be home broadband, fixed wireless access?
To start with?
To start with. Anand, coming to you on that, would you like to add any more potential use cases on B2C? And then we'll get chatting about B2B and the value proposition.
See, as you said, I think on the B2C side, video will continue to be one of the biggest, but you are already getting 4G, but how do you sort of look at ultra speed is going to be one of the killer use cases as we go along. And clearly, as Rajan mentioned, these things will evolve as the network grows. If 4G was all about feeds and speeds, 5G will be about providing the experience to the end user. With more and more developments happening in the case of, say, metaverse, or in the case of AR, VR, how do you sort of provide the shopper the same experience that you have when you're shopping? So I think those are the things that people will start working on as this becomes more and more ubiquitous. But I think, as you mentioned, the biggest benefit or biggest use cases will be on the B2B side. Today, telecom service providers gain a big chunk of their revenues from the consumer mobility side, and there is a huge opportunity on the enterprise side, which is what we are working closely with all the operators on. I think there is enormous potential across all of these areas. I mean, during the pandemic, some of us in the knowledge sector perhaps had the luxury of working for extended periods of time from home. How do you extend that to beyond the knowledge sector workers? Why would they not have the luxury or the advantage of having to work from wherever they want rather than working from there? That's where all the use cases of manufacturing, agriculture, all of these come into play. And I think that is where 5G will have a big role to play going forward, is the way we see it.